This is one of the gardens we shall visit today in Alresford, Hampshire, or Alresford as some people call it. The peaceful setting is in marked contrast to the scene at the front of the house in Broad Street. Here is plenty of evidence to prove that New Alresford is still a very busy and popular country town, as it has been through the centuries. Its most prosperous time was probably as a medieval wool town, having strong ties with the nearby cathedral city of Winchester. And the homes and gardens have survived many changes since then, not the least being some of the fires in the town, and dramatic evidence of this can be seen at the entrance to the first home we visit today, which is in Mill Hill at the bottom of Broad Street. A great fire in 1736 destroyed the homes of 30 families, and it's believed that this was one of them. The space has been used as a setting for some beautiful roses and clematis, and also to provide the passer-by with a glimpse of the glorious garden beyond. The present owners, Mr. and Mrs. Leask, who moved in quite recently, are more than grateful to the previous owner, Lady Watts, for all the love and care she gave to the garden.
It all looks very established, but I believe you're comparative newcomers.
Yes, we came in March last year.
Oh, so really it's only your second summer.
Yes.
You're still finding out new things?
Finding out new things and deciding what we want to change.
Oh, you're actually daring to make some changes.
More colour later in the summer, I hope.
It's very much a high summer garden.
It's June, end of June, yes, best about...
July.
Yes, in July.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're really at the peak of it now, I suppose.
Just parked on the peonies, but otherwise, yes.
What's the soil like here?
Very, very good.
It certainly looks it.
Yes.
It's for years been a rubbish dump with all the old cottages, and therefore it's built up lots of very good humus on top of the chalk, which is about 4 feet down, I think.
Ah, real blaze of colour right the way down here. And this border of catmint's a fine feature, isn't it? Or sort of Nepeta, we ought to call it, really. I mean, in such surroundings, catmint's almost vulgar. Are you plagued by cats coming after it?
We have one from next door, called Tigger. Comes and eats it.
But your dog sees most of them off.
And he's great
No,
friends.
he's great friends.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, great friends.
We're sitting right under this wonderful sort of umbrella-shaped yew. How often do you have to prune it?
About every 2 years. It was created by Lady Watts, who used to have this house, and she made an existing tree into this shape. And we have to get, it's the only bit of the garden we have to get someone in to do.
It's a fine feature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it actually keep the rain out? I mean, can you sit under it
Yes,
in
we
a
can.
shower?
Can't we shelter under it, don't we, something?
I think.
He's about 60 years old.
And Lady Watts laid out the rest of the
No,
garden?
she inherited quite a bit of it, and she's then built up on that.
Oh, it's certainly fine. Can we go and have a look?
Yes.
Lovely peonies there for a start, aren't they?
Yes. That's called white wings, this one.
That's just
Very
about right.
pretty.
Is this a lichnis here?
Yes.
Just gives a nice touch of red, doesn't it? It's not all pinks and whites and blues. Lovely true geranium there.
Love in the mist here.
Yes. And do you find it
Very, very
sows
pretty.
itself?
Yes. Yes.
Of course, this is a garden that makes no concession to curves, is it? It's all straight lines.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a wonderful perspective right through.
Gives a good perspective here, and we have another path over here alongside the hedge there.
That's right. I mean, normally herbaceous borders, perhaps you see them from one side, but here you've got the benefit of both sides.
Yeah.
Any problems with it?
No, it
No.
makes it much easier,
Much
doesn't
easier
it?
to work.
We can get to
To
both
dig
sides.
and,
Yeah.
yes.
And this lawn running right up here like a roll of green baize. It's in wonderful condition. It must mean a lot of work.
Well, I put over one of these scarifier machines in the spring. There's a lot of moss on it because it gets protected from the sun in the morning by these trees. Took it all out, and it's grown back very well, actually.
You really
Would have
gathered it
fertilised
all
it.
up afterwards, did you?
Yep.
Because,
Gathered the whole lot
it
up.
leaves
As you can
the
see,
odd
there's
spores behind.
no moss come
It's
back.
wonderfully clean.
Yeah.
Wonderful foil to the flowers, isn't it?
Yes.
We've got the anchusa here, and I noticed back there some smaller delphiniums, this wonderful clump down here. And quite a few different colours in them. Did you put them in?
No, Lady Watts put everything in,
All this
and we
stuff.
inherited this lovely garden.
Yes.
And,
The staking, though, you've done.
yes, I did.
I
And they go down about 18
fair
metres.
bit of wind here, do you?
Yes, we did. We have had terrible storms this summer. And this, I think, is called Black Night.
It's a lovely one.
And
No white one behind it.
beautiful white one behind it. And this is a lovely mid-blue. The white centre.
There's a huge hollyhocks there where it
Yeah.
comes up. Really fantastic.
Yes, they'll take over, won't they, when
Yeah.
these are finished?
Yeah.
Some more of those
And,
lovely peonies down there.
There's a pretty white campanula there.
So there is.
Yes.
And the bees get busy in those, don't they?
Yes. Especially the catnip.
A bit of colour when everything else is gone. You've still got the potentilla there.
Yep.
It's a nice shrubby sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes, I think you're putting some more in, actually.
There's a red variety I think we can put in.
Is it?
Yes.
Red Ace, isn't
Yes,
it? Yeah,
that's right.
quite a new one. And
And
these
this,
two lovely little rock gardens here,
Yes.
raised up
This is beautiful, campanula here, isn't it? Lovely.
by these
Violet.
steps. Now, these look very old, or at least the bricks do.
I think the
Yes.
bricks from the old cottage have disappeared again, and they're made all over the garden. There are things built to those bricks. That was a mass of colour up to about 2 weeks
Yes,
ago.
but it was too much albrecia in it.
Yeah.
And we want to put lots more spring flowers, alpines in.
Lovely, the clematis going up the tree there.
Yes.
It was simply beautiful.
yeah.
It's
And
just
what's that
going
white
down.
one beside it? Oh, that's
What's the
rather
rose?
nice.
This one?
The one, the white one's called Penelope. And that's a lot of feverfew. Do you see that little
The white.
chrysanthemum? It's called feverfew.
Ah, no, isn't that supposed to be good for migraine?
That's absolutely right, yes.
Let's go up Broad Street again to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Hugh Brown and share the lovely view they enjoy from the back of their house. However, before we look at some of the features in this area, let's join Hugh Brown and Harry over the garden wall, just up there on the right.
It's the first time we've done a garden with its own vineyard. This one looks very well established. Just how long has it been here?
Well, as a matter of fact, it was my son's idea, and this was planted 12 years ago.
Well, so it's been here quite a while.
12 years
now.
ago. You can see by the main vine there that it's about 1.5 inches in diameter.
Yes. They like a limey, fairly rich soil, don't they?
Yes.
Do you have to do a lot of preparation?
No, the minimum. The most preparation we had to do was to clear the weeds. And then, of course, we planted the vines, the cuttings, and from there they've just done jolly well. They're very pleased with it.
They weren't grafted onto any special stock?
They were a Huxell-Raber vine, and that's German, and it's grafted onto American anti-phylloxera stock.
Ah, yes, to resist
Because
that
the-
dreaded aphid.
The deadly disease which ravaged the vineyards of France.
Oh, it was a
And,
disaster, wasn't it?
It was dreadful. The disease actually attacks the roots, so they had to clear the vineyards and start again.
What about pruning on this scale? It must be quite a palaver.
Yes, well, pruning is one of my winter hobbies.
Ah.
And I must say that it's one that my son tries to avoid because it has to be done in January and it's jolly cold. But if you do it any later, the sap starts to rise and the vine will bleed very badly, so it has to be done early.
And do you do any summer pruning at all?
Yes, summer topping. Summer topping. These. Off.
Just nip them off.
Nip them off like that because we don't want any more growth. We want the growth now to go to the grapes. It's rather small at the moment.
That's right. What about pests?
At the moment, we've been very lucky. Last year we had one which had a spot of mildew, and you can spray that with copper sulfate, but I didn't worry because it's just one, and I left it. The other pest, birds. Now, you can be very drastic with that, and you can raise a sparrowhawk and try and get a sparrowhawk to nest in a tree, and if he takes up that vicinity, he will keep all birds away.
It really does sound a bit drastic, as
Bit
you say.
drastic. But apart from that, in a small garden like this, I can put a net over.
But it's very well sheltered here. It must be an absolute sun trap.
Yes, because the wall, of course, acts like a storage heater.
Is grape growing as much a gamble as one might think it is? I mean, there's a lot of bunches here coming.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that in England, it is a gamble. And you find people that have areas, say, several acres, and it becomes a commercial thing, then it is hardly viable sometimes. If you get a good summer like we did last summer, this vineyard, which is 50 vines, produced about 200 pounds of grapes.
200 pounds.
And
That's a lot of grapes.
I thought that was quite good.
I notice you have a few gaps here.
Yes, we have. We lost one or two. There's one over at the back there, but the cuttings that we take off in the winter, we just put in the ground, and nearly all of them will root. And in the greenhouse there, I have some which have established and will be planted out.
Can we go and have a look?
Yes, by all means.
Of course, in vineyards in France sometimes, they plant the odd edible variety here
Yes.
and there, don't they?
Oh, yes, that's a nice touch, that one.
Sort of perks for the pickers.
Yes, Harry, I think that's rather a nice touch. Because if you're picking in France for hours in the hot sun, you're going through kilometres of vine,
That's it.
and you come across a beautiful, luscious grape. Rather nice,
Oh, very good.
rather nice.
These edible ones in here? I mean, you know,
This-
dessert varieties?
No, this is a cutting from one of my pruning sticks.
That's
And
some
that-
of the cutting.
Yes, that was put in 4 years ago, and it just shows what heat will do as opposed to a vine in the open.
Doesn't it just?
Now that is an earth greenhouse. It's not a brick floor, so
No.
the vine was planted in it, and it's overtaken the greenhouse. And I wanted you to see how many bunches of grapes will appear. About a third or two-thirds of those will have to be cut off.
It's a
in order to
mouthwatering
produce-
prospect, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Will you be thinning any of the grapes in the bunches?
Yes, that's done with a pair of grape scissors. Rather a tedious business, and rather better done on a cool day, because in there now it must be 90 degrees or more.
That's it. Pointed scissors and a fork
That's
stick,
right.
isn't it?
That's
To
right.
hold them apart.
That's right, yes.
Good job, you're needing a lot of patience.
Little patience. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to get a rather nice bunch of grapes,
well
it's
worth
worth
it.
to do things properly, you have to take care these days.
And a few, what, melons along the front?
A few melons, again, experimental. I used to try to run them up string, and then I read a hint that you must only have one growing shoot and get the end off and get 2 or 3 naturals. And
You've
then
got to
you'll get
restrict it,
melon.
haven't you?
So
Yes.
I'm hoping. I pour a lot of water in there every day, and it may help.
Well, they look very healthy, don't they?
That's
What sort are they? Sweetheart, something like that?
These are an Ocean melon.
Yeah.
My wife bought one. I took all the pips and grew these.
Ah.
So I'm hoping.
Of course, you've got a lot more fruit outside. You mentioned the
Yes,
fruit
we
cake.
have. Yes, raspberries. That is protected not only against birds, but against other pests, such as my grandson and my son's dog, etc.
It all looks very cosy in there, doesn't it?
Yes.
But over here, a fine feature, this magnificent mulberry tree.
Yes.
So it's been here a
Yes.
fair time.
Yes. Well, I didn't plant it, and I would say that's probably one of the oldest mulberry trees in Hampshire.
What sort is it?
This one is a black mulberry, and when it's ripe, it is a really blackish red, and quite delightful to eat if you like mulberries.
Do you make good use of them?
Well, I must admit that the birds have a lot of them, but 1 or 2 friends do like them for jelly.
They're looking
Jelly
good
making.
already, aren't they?
A beautiful year.
Because it was the
Beautiful year,
white
wasn't it?
mulberry, wasn't it, that they used
Yes,
for silkworms?
yes. Now this, I understand, was brought in the reign of James I, and I believe it was through him that there was an act of Parliament passed that all people who owned land above a certain acreage had by law to plant a mulberry tree.
There it is.
And this was to enable the silkworm industry to flourish.
But here they planted the wrong sort.
This one they planted the wrong sort. But it's a beautiful tree.
Oh, fine. There's no law saying you had to grow your own herbs, but you've got a fine herb garden there.
Yes,
too.
that's my wife's part there. I think she tells me there are about 25 different herbs in that
Oh,
in that
it's looking
patch
fine,
there.
isn't it?
And when the lavender's out, it does look really, really splendid.
And up here, you've got these 2 walls, one either
Yes.
side,
Yes,
red on that side, and the,
Yes.
the flint over
the brick
there.
and flint, very typical of this part of Hampshire.
Yes, I saw some new houses in Petersfield only the other
Yeah.
day being built the same way.
Yes.
Good, isn't it?
Yes, very fine. But that wall there, I'm told again, that the foundation was put down at the time of Bishop de Lucy.
When was that?
Now that was about 1200. And he constructed the mole between the lake and the river, and this part was laid out for his new town. It was originally going to be called Newtown, but I suppose the people that lived here preferred New Alresford. That's how it started.
Well, it's looking marvellous now with these roses up
Yes,
here.
yes.
And I suppose this marvellous roof line here goes back a
We're
few
rather
years.
proud
too.
of that roof line of Alresford. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
There's a bit of history there.
And oh yes, yes. The last fire, I think that was in 1590. I believe it was 1590. That destroyed 119 houses in Alresford and the church. And
Quite a blaze.
there was a later one than that. These houses are probably about 260 years old. But of course the cellars go back much earlier.
The windows are an interesting shape too, aren't they?
They are indeed, yes. especially that one on the left there. Certain amount of sinkage, maybe.
That's right. But it's standing up to the time, isn't it?
Oh, yes, yes. Well, it's been there a long time, Harry.
That's right. And below it, this lovely patio.
Yes.
Just the place to sample the fruits of your labours in the vineyard.
You're quite right. And it would be my pleasure, Harry, if you would join my wife and I in a little glass of some of the wine that came from the vineyard, you see.
What a splendid idea.
All right.
Hello, Joy. Your herbs are looking good up there. Really soaking up the sunshine.
I'll offer you a glass of wine.
Lovely.
And now, to finish our visit to Alresford, we have a very special treat for you. Beautiful as many of the homes in this series may be, very few will argue that the last home we visit today can have few equals. The arresting beauty of the house and its setting must have given great joy to hundreds of people who discovered it as they walked along the riverbank. The old fulling mill is the home of Mr. and Mrs. Brian Gush, and is a reminder of the period when there was a flourishing cloth trade in Alresford. Fulling, or felting, was in fact a process in the making of cloth from wool. The mill is situated on the parish boundary between Old and New Alresford, and actually spans the stream which separates the two places.
We've seen some gardens with streams in this series, but never one as wide and fast-flowing as this one. Is it always like this?
Yes, it doesn't vary very much now because they pump a lot of water in at Ropley to keep the level up to feed Southampton with water.
So it never dries up?
No, never dries up at all, no.
The garden's never short of water, right?
Oh, no, we're very lucky for that. Yeah.
That's why you've got this marvellously green lawn, I
Yes, and back in '76 when we had the drought, we were the only people in Hampshire with a green lawn because we pumped from the river, you see.
And the best of times, I suppose, when it's up like this, the water's not very far below.
Oh, no, the level's only about a foot down at the most, yeah.
And it takes you over to this marvellous border down the side here.
Yes.
I don't know whether to call it a casket of jewels or a painter's palette. It's
Well,
really sparkling, isn't it?
Yes, it's all due to my wife's work. She does the whole of the flower garden this side, and she set out to make a real cottage garden of it, isn't
It's really
it?
fabulous.
Yeah.
And those roses in the centre, just like rubies.
Yes, yes.
And that's
a
what...
very old variety of Frencham. You can't even buy them now, and they've been there for 30 years. Yeah.
Lovely campanulas down at this end.
Yes, yes.
And a rather unusual delphinium.
That is an unusual, that light-coloured delphinium, the yellow one, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry, you were talking of the delphinium,
Yes.
the blue. Yes, that's Connecticut Yankee. I thought you meant the lupins.
Oh, they're a fine, real cottage garden feature too.
Typical cottage gardening, aren't they? Yeah.
And the rather underrated pelargoniums along the front there, real dabs of scarlet.
You can't beat them for making a bit of colour in the garden all through the summer.
Oh, first rate.
Yeah.
And that sort of conifer at the end there really sets it off.
Yes, we
Pillar of
planted
gold
that
there.
when we first came here 35 years ago. And it's a beautiful tree now.
It's doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah, we had 2 or 3 more there originally. It's a good thing they got blown down in a storm some years ago. And it's rather a good thing they did because it sort of exposed that one much more.
You find
to make
right
a
against
feature.
all the big trees there.
Yes, yes.
And I like your planting of these tubs here on the patio. That's
Yes.
effective too, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Change them with the season.
Yes, even the busy lizards make a good show,
yes.
don't they?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
First rate.
Yeah.
And these begonias here too.
Yes, these are ones I grow from seed.
From seed, not from tubers.
No, these are from seed, sown in January, and they'll flower right the way through into October.
A grey wagtail over there.
Yes, we have a pair of them. They come every year and nest usually in holes in the bank of the river, but this year they nested in the paracantha on the garage.
Yeah, I see you've got your garage thatched to match the
Oh,
house.
yes,
But
yes.
that's not quite as old.
Not quite as old. My brother-in-law and I built it 35 years ago. We didn't thatch it, but we did the building, and then we got it thatched.
It's a fine job, isn't it?
Yes, it's sort of in keeping with the house, isn't it?
Oh, marvellous. But we've got another lawn beyond the roses.
Yes, well, now, when we bought the place, that was a small cress bed, watercress bed. It was very unsightly, so I bought it from the chap who owned that because it was actually in our garden. and we filled it in with everything we could lay our hands on and turned it into a lawn.
So you don't grow watercress now?
No, we don't grow watercress, no.
But you grow a lot of other things. You've got
We grow
this
plenty
charity
of things.
nursery over here.
Oh, yes, rather. We grow hundreds of plants, thousands of plants over there.
That's a new
yeah.
idea to me.
Yes, I think it is new. I don't know of anybody who does it,
Never
but
met it before, no.
I started it just for a bit of fun, and it sort of built up, you know. Last year we raised £4,000 for the charities, and this year we're hoping to do 5,000.
And how long have you been doing it, you say?
10 years, 11 years.
And in that time, what sort of sum have you raised?
Altogether, up to date, it's about 19,000.
That's quite a
Yeah,
total, isn't it?
yeah.
Can we go and have a look?
Yes, rather.
Because this was the old fulling mill.
Yes.
How much of it was actually used for that purpose?
Well, really, from here to the end, that was the actual mill part, and this was the living quarters.
Actually did it here?
Yes.
So it's a bit of industrial archaeology, this, then?
Yes, very much so.
Can't see many of our modern buildings, the factories and so on, looking quite as
No, I don't
picturesque.
think they'll look quite as good as this.
We've got a good sturdy fruit cage here.
Yes, it's a good strong cage, isn't it? Yes, I had that made by my old firm.
And I see you're growing your strawberries here on
Yes.
black polythene.
Well, I find it's better than straw, you know. If you use straw, you get so much wheat and oats and barley growing up through it, you're forever weeding them.
That's right.
Yes.
What about slugs? Are there any problem?
I put pellets down underneath,
Oh,
and that
under
seems
the
to keep them down
polythene.
all right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, it must make for a much warmer bed.
I think it does. I think it does. The black polythene, it attracts the heat, you know, and warms them up well.
And these beds out here with your vegetables on, I see veg those with these big boards. Is that to raise the level a bit?
Yes, because we're so wet here that I'd like to get them up another foot in time if I could, you know.
You'd need a lot of timber for that.
You would, yes.
I notice here, even on this gravel, the ground's quite spongy.
Yes, yes. Well, you see, your water table's only about 6 or 8 inches down.
Close, isn't it?
Yes,
So no
yes.
wonder the vegetables are doing well.
Yes.
And
yes.
in the pots right down here, you've got these great serried ranks of Solanum capsicastrum, the Christmas
Oh, yes.
cherry.
Yes.
Don't you find they're a magnet for all sorts of pests and diseases,
Well,
sooty mould? I find it in the greenhouse.
They are inclined to be, particularly for aphids, but I spray them every 4 weeks with one of these systemic insecticides and keep them absolutely clear.
That does the trick.
Yes,
Yeah,
but you've got to do it regularly.
Outside here, I see you've got these pie dish bird scarers banging about. Are birds a problem here?
Well, not so much birds. I think it's mostly moorhens, you see. Just the other side of those trees is the little river, and the moorhens come through underneath, and they will peck the lettuces.
Well, they just pop in for a snack.
Yes, oh yes.
And these are tending to put them off, are they?
I think it helps. It helps. As you see, some of them are damaged by the birds, but it's only on the outside. It doesn't spoil the heart, fortunately.
You keep this pretty well fed. I see you have a good compost heap on three
yes.
stages.
I
there
make
going
2
on.
tons of compost every year here, yes.
2 tons, that's
2
a lot
tons,
of compost.
yes. Those 3 will be absolutely brimful for next spring.
Well, what with the water and that feeding, no wonder everything's doing so well.
Right away. Yes.
Before we leave this beautiful property, let's take a look at the other side of the house with this view from downriver. It seems to capture the unspoiled character of the setting, far from the noise of traffic, helping to create an atmosphere of peace and serenity.